right, it's the 25th day into the month of April, and it is a Thursday as well. You're most welcome from wherever you're watching us from. This is the Kokoliriko live on West Nile Television, and we are into the Thursday edition. And remember, this show comes your ways every Mondays to Fridays. That is from the hour of 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And ready we are in. That is to give you what is happening in the world of also current affairs and the world of news, and what is happening elsewhere in your communities. And that only happens here on the show. And definitely when we come, we will give you those in details. And that is why we always come here each and every mornings, right from 7 o'clock up to 9 o'clock, as I said earlier on. And remember, you too can also still be part of the show by just maybe sharing your ideas, commenting maybe what you think we have, or what we have discussed on the show as well here. And remember, we also really go through some of the comments. But really, to begin off the discussions without wasting any more time, remember yesterday we did see shocking stories on the past this morning. But really, if I can be able to remind you of, there is a story of a man who abandoned the family for 13 years and only returned after the wife got PDM money. What does this mean? It means that really you have to continue working very hard, because if you not maybe work hard, people are going to be running away from you, which would also not be very, very well in there. But really, for somebody to disappear for 13 years and only to return after the woman getting PDM cash is really very, very much quite ironic. But really, I don't know what that means. But that means that you, who is still on bed up to this hour of the morning, you need now move out of that bed, step out, go start looking for money that would also really make people not run away from you. Because today we have realized that people who are poor have been run away from, and people who have money have so many close relatives because so many people want assistance from them. But for those who have no money, even if you're calling on their love, maybe the rich relatives, definitely they will think that you want money, and in most cases they will not also really want to pick your calls. That means that you have to work harder to really also get something small for yourself, so that you're not left out. Because really, if you look at what is happening today, if you do not have money, trust me, people are going to be running away from you, people are going to minimize you, people are going to despise you in several ways. And that is why you also need to work very, very much harder, so that also really you avoid such tendencies of what is happening maybe else around the world. But really, residents of Busulo village in Kayunga sub-county, Kayunga district, we are stunned when a man who had abandoned his family for 13 years returned home after his wife received, that is the PDM cash, which is the parish development model money, which government is giving out, that is to vulnerable community members to elevate themselves out of poverty. And now for somebody only to return, maybe with intent of getting this money, then definitely that is how maybe bad people can be. Because for 13 years you're not around, and your wife is now receiving about 1 million. Definitely that's when you are returning. This is quite ironic, and really I did not expect maybe people to also really indulge in such activities, because really it is quite shocking for you to abandon your family, where as a man you expect to be the head of family and you also disappear. That is how very, very bad it can be. But really I want to also say people need to avoid such tendencies which can never be good for them. And that is why we are saying let maybe people take responsibility, or let them avoid tendencies of running away from their families when there are challenges. And Miss Efulansi Nalubega, 49 years old, said her husband, that is Mr. James Chisamba, with whom they had 6 children, abandoned them, that is in 2011 after really also disappearing in there. However, she was surprised to see Mr. Chisamba return to his home last month after she received the PDM money. And PDM was launched, that is in February of 2023, by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, also that is to get people into the money economy, where 39% of the countries and 43 million population that lives on, that is the hand to mouth, can also really maybe work for themselves in there. And the couple had been married for 15 years when Mr. Chisamba decided to walk away, abandoning Ms. Nalubega, who had physical disability, to fend for her children. And also that is something we did see on the part this morning. Why would you really run away from your family, even if your wife is disabled? This is the wife you chose. This is the wife you decided to marry and have children with. And really, why would you run away from? Because if you really look at, after abandoning the family, now their eldest child has reached 27 years old. And that means that really this man disappeared a very long period of time. And Ms. Nalubega said on Tuesday at her home, the man returned to where he was from. And that is something also we did see on the past morning. And Ms. Nalubega said, as a wife, she only looked after the family and had no other source of income, where this also really, I believe, very, very much put them into trouble, and where they could have suffered very, very much. But really, for you to disappear for all this while, that is how very, very bad it can be. And this shade meant that she had to depend entirely on her husband, that is for her living. And that is something we will see also maybe what talking about here, because after all this while where they gave, that is, birth to more than 6 children at least, and you are now disappearing and leaving the entire responsibility of the 6 children to a wife who is also disabled, then definitely that is why very, very bad sometimes other men can be. We're not saying all the men are bad, but sometimes other men can also really be very, very bad. They are not supporting women, but really sometimes, as we are saying, some men can be very, very bad. And later, Ms. Nalbega revealed that her husband wanted to rent out, that is the 2-acre piece of land on which she grows food crops for the family, but she also was assisted by Uganda Women Association of Lawyers, FIDA, also officials that is in Kayunga district who blocked his plan of wanting to take over the land. And in April 2011, Ms. Nalbega said, without saying any word, Mr. Chisamba packed his clothes in a bag and left the home, that is in a company semi-permanent house on the 2 acres of land, and really did not return, only for him to return. That is after obtaining the money that's for the PDM in there. At first, Ms. Nalbega said, thought Mr. Chisamba would return after a few days, but she got shocked when the days turned into months and then 10 years without hearing from him. And that is also really how very, very absurd it can be. And she also knitted wheat, that is sweaters plus making handcrafts, which she sold and got some money to fend for her family. And that is also really something we are saying. And when she got the PDM money, and when Ms. Nalbega was chosen as one of the beneficiaries, that is in Bukuju Parish, and this was a big relief to her as she was struggling to buy seeds and fertilizers and naps packers, also sprayer for her maize growing enterprise. And that is something maybe that could have also really maybe realized this man from where he was hiding, that indeed this is a woman maybe I should continue with. And really sometimes also people go when they're expecting better, and where they reach, they are sometimes also really subjected into a lot of harassment, and they start regretting. But really, how would you endure for all these 13 years and without really thinking about the family that you abandoned? And this is really quite shocking, and these are things that I must say sometimes children cannot be able to forgive their parents for. And really, if this continues and if this is happening within the society, then this is quite absurd, and we should condemn this in the strongest terms. And she was early last year given that shillings 1 million to grow maize from the 2 acre of acres of land. Ms. Nalbega got, that is shillings 2.3 million upon harvest, and she used some of the profits to buy a new bicycle at, that is 350,000, and she also started, that is plastering the family house and also building a kitchen, and that is also really where she is using that money from. And the shock of her life came last month when her husband reappeared and he is returned in the last thing she ever expected in her life, and she never expected that this man would return. And Ms. Nalbega narrated the story of 2 journalists and a team of officials that's from State House, led by, that is, James Toheyo, the commissioner, that's of the RDC secretariat, who paid her a visit last Friday. And this is something also we are saying maybe the more support would also really maybe better her life up, because this man who disappeared, I don't even think that we need him back much as we need reconciliation, because for 13 years really I'm just imagining the kind of life this people were subjected to. Definitely I must say it wasn't a good one. If you really know, maybe a family without maybe a head of state, maybe a head of family, definitely as a man without a man in the home, definitely there's a lot of suffering. And the State House officials were on value for money assessment, that's on government funded projects in the district, and that is always something we did see maybe also echoing out her voice for. Mr. Chisamba was not at home when the State House team visited him, and Dr. Toeo held that Mr. Nalbega for being hardworking and for continuing to fend for her family when her husband deserted the family. And that is also something that we are seeing on this morning. And what is this man saying? And the man, we're talking about Mr. Chisamba, told journalists that on phone that he deserted his home because he had no money to look after his family. But really, you married and you thought that you would also really maybe take care of your family, and now you are just disappearing. That is how quite shocking and how quite ironic it is, because sometimes we say marriages are meant to be for better for worse, and really if one partner now disappears when it is at the worst, then that is how quite shocking and how maybe sad it is, because we are saying marriage is meant to be for better for worse. Nobody is supposed to run away from maybe the kind of marriage that we are having, because really if you start running away, then that is quite bad, and we do not expect people to run away from marriages, because marriages are meant to be and last forever. But really if that continues, maybe if that continues to happen in the families, and that is really something we are going to be saying is quite bad. And Dr. Charles Igad, the Kayunga District Director for Production, however, cautioned Ms. Nalbega against donating the PDM funds to her husband, who had also deserted from the family, and he is not supposed to get the money. And that is also something that the people of the area are raising concern about, and that is also really something that we want to ask and see your opinions and see your ideas on what you think about this matter. Do you think that this man should be forgiven, or the man should also really be thrown away? Because really abandoning your family for 13 years and you just return after your wife getting PDM money and then really also starting to work harder, that is when you return. And maybe you see and you think that you can now take care of the family, but really 13 years is quite huge. And really, this could have also subjected the family to a lot of suffering. But really, what should we do? That is also the question that we ask this morning. Should we forgive this man? Definitely, you should also really share your opinions with us, because really, I know this could be happening in Kayunga, but elsewhere, the same scenarios could be happening, because sometimes you really see people growing without their elders, without their grandmothers, only to return when the children are already old. But really, where have you been? And we often see them also being forgiven, because our cultures are against throwing them away, because these are family members whom we cannot throw away. And someone to live in harmony with his wife is also to realize meaningful development in their home. And he criticizes men who abandon their father's responsibilities and want their wives to instead play these roles, which is really quite unfortunate. And really, we want to say, as men, we need not to run away from our responsibilities, because really, if at all we are to run away from our responsibilities, then that is also really how very bad it can be, and really how dangerous it can also really be, because as men, we are supposed to be the breadwinners. We are supposed to be the champions of the home, and really we are the ones supposed to be the caretakers and those who are supposed to be also really in charge of the home, because really as a man, God also really placed us on top, and that is why we need to ensure that we take care of the family, we work together. But now we are also saying that this should not also remain in the hands of the men alone. Women too also really have to work very harder. Today we are seeing a lot of the women in the markets, and these are women who are supporting their families, and we are seeing their families doing quite well. And that means that also really women out there need to embrace the same, and that is the issue why we are saying women also need to work harder as well. They need to work together with the men so that the home stands stronger, because the home where two hands are already working together, definitely we have seen these homes kind of different, maybe standing differently and standing stronger, because the man can decide to pay school fees, as the woman can decide to pay maybe other needs, for instance food. This is where we have seen the families also really working very well. And today we are saying maybe the responsibility of taking care of home is not only supposed to be in the hands of men alone. We are saying that this issue of really some women wanting everything to come from the man needs to stop, because that is not in the kind of world we are living today. Because in the world we are living today, definitely we expect everybody to be working harder, and that is also really how at the end of the day we would also really maybe see our status, or maybe our life is being improved, which would also really be quite good for us to also really witness. As we move away from that, Parliament has rejected plans by the government of Uganda to abolish the Uganda National Roads Authority. This is also another story that we are seeing on the past morning. Remember, government is currently undertaking merging of agencies, where government agencies which are almost doing a similar work have to be merged together, and UNRA is supposed to be part of Ministry of Works and Transport, because they do the same things, and that is where UNRA is supposed to be merged, and NFA is supposed to go under Ministry of Forest and Environment. But really we have seen also environment also really being put at halt, because Parliament says NFA is doing a tremendous job in terms of protecting the forest and also protecting the environment as well, and that is where they could be surviving, because we have so many agencies today. If you look at what is happening with the sector of maybe electricity, let's take electricity, so many companies are doing the same work, and these are also really maybe sometimes getting money from the taxpayers, and also really that is also really maybe where it becomes very much difficult, because all these government agencies have staffs, have also really budget that needs to be catered for. And yet, if we're told maybe we will also really maybe see to it that they do not also really work differently, we will see maybe first of all the services being better up, because we are seeing so many agencies doing almost the same thing. But really where it becomes a challenge is that maybe government also really has to spend a lot of money. But now people are also really raising concern about the same issue that we are talking about, merging the government agencies, and yet we are seeing government creating more other positions. These are other positions, and yet these are also going to be catered for by the taxpayers, and these are really something that we also really saying we need to follow up, because recently we did see also Parliament also asking the Commission, that is also the authority responsible for these appointments, to also really answer to those claims of these people being appointed, and maybe under the criteria they have used for maybe employing these people, because we are seeing these people being employed at a time where we are coming almost to the end of the financial year, and yet the authority is saying these are going to be also championing, that is the issue of patriotism. And really we are waiting to see, because we have received them in the offices, and very soon we shall be having any of them to also come and explain to us maybe how they intend to also make the citizens love their country, because the issue of loving the country is actually what we are talking about. It is also what we refer to as the patriotism bit of it, because if you don't love your country, definitely we may also see you engaging in those unscrupulous businesses, for instance, corruption, where these people have to also really very, very much put their efforts on, because we have to see them fighting corruption, which is a deadly vice that is eating up the society today. And really want to see how they will also work towards avoiding also and ending corruption in the country there, because once the corruption is done, definitely we would also want to see how that would also at the end of the day end. And Parliament's Physical Infrastructure Committee, in its report that's on Tuesday, warned MPs against abolishing UNRA and saying this would also lead to delays in the execution of projects, and also really the authorities should be retained because it has served the mandate for which it was created, and thus still relevant in Uganda. And that is what this was saying. And Dan Kimosho, the Kazo County Member of Parliament, defended the position of Parliament's Physical Infrastructure Committee, arguing that Uganda still requires to undertake major national road projects such as toll expressways and managing toll operations, dualling of major roads corridors, flyovers, and also really span bridges such as the Nile Bridge. And these are all to also really address the challenge of the poor roads network that we have in the country today. And remember, our legislators often have raised this concern about the status of our road. And if you look at the road status in maybe in Uganda, for instance, the road that connects, that is the Pakwach-Kampala road, you realize the road is not in a good state, and that definitely tells us maybe why. And legislators maybe in West Nile sub-region need to unite and also really front one idea, and that is also really where we expecting members of Parliament, that is from West Nile sub-region, also really to front ideas, and of which idea to me I think would be the issue of the road and really and the power. These are the two concerns that really affect the people of West Nile sub-region. If you look at power and road, you will know that these are the two things that have hampered a lot of development in the region. And further aware of challenges that may currently exist at UNRA, such as the bloated structure, inadequate stakeholder management, and as well as governance, and these are the issues that also need to be addressed, and that is why the Fiscal Committee is already addressing that issue there. And that is one thing that also we want to see maybe UNRA working towards addressing that. And Kim also said taxpayers would have dig deeper into their pockets and raise, that is shillings 227.24 billion as payment for compensation to all UNRA staff, and that will be laid off. The decision to abolish the agency is upheld, and that means that if really these are going to be laid off, they have to be compensated, but really the MP could not have it. That is, you let UNRA stay, and really that's also really want to see UNRA also really maybe continue to do with the work. But really where the challenge comes in, that is the maintenance of the roads, and really that is maybe an area, if at all UNRA would work towards, I would be very, very much happy, because we want to see the road network being improved. And that is why that we would also really wish to see maybe that development of the road sector also really being very, very much paramount in there. But as we continue the show, definitely you can also really share your opinions with us on what we are discussing on the show as well. Definitely also that would be quite well for you to share your ideas. And remember, as we continue with the issue of the merging of the agencies, so many people have expressed divergent opinions. Others have been in support. Yesterday we were in the streets, and so many people have shared ideas about the same, and which will also be ushering very soon on the show here on what they think about the agency, merge of the agencies. Because really, if you look at the agencies that we have today, you will realize most of them we are actually doing the same thing, and these had also staffs, and they also had a budget which government had to cater for, and this also really expanded our budget. And today, where we also really seeing budget cuts, if you look at what is happening, maybe our budget projection may increase, but definitely the funding also is very, very much low. And where are we going to be borrowing the money from? And the burden of borrowing money also really continues to remain. And that is why so many people are sharing their ideas of this of being in support, that is for the merger of these agencies. And we want to see these agencies being formed as one. For instance, if Ministry of Transport is supposed to be doing maybe work, it has to be Ministry of Works alone and Transport to do the work. And that is where all the support would also really go to, and I believe at the end of the day that would also really help improve on services, and of which services we are saying will also really be very, very good. And that is something also we want to see, and maybe you want to see also you sharing your idea on. You can keep your ideas, maybe your comments coming through on the various social media platforms, and we would also really go through them in the later hour of the show. And this is still a Kokoliriko live show on West Nile Television, and you can also really still keep your comments coming through, and definitely we shall be able to go through them. But really, as we continue with the show, you should also really keep on maybe your comments coming from, because MPs continue to reject that is a reject merger of that is Ministry of and other agencies that by the way which have also really rejected been rejected, that is to be merged, include NITA, which was supposed to be taken under Ministry of ICT. And that is something also really we are saying we need to also really maybe find out, because as Parliament continues to reject these agencies, what are we seeing? Maybe what are we going to be seeing? Because if you look at some of the agencies, we have some of these agencies that include that's National Forest Authority, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, and the National Culture Advisory Authority, and Dairy Development Authority, and the Cotton Development Authority, which all have to be also taken under Ministry of Agriculture. And these are things that we also need to see. Maybe you sharing your ideas on what do you think about the merger and the intention by government to also really bring these entities and form one agency is also really where we want to also see you sharing your ideas. And remember, recently, prior to the start of the state process that in Parliament, President Museveni held several meetings with the members of Parliament, and that is of the NRM party, aimed at convincing the legislature to support the idea of the merger of these agencies. And this is also really see to it that there is also government money that is also really spared, and that is also really maybe to the advantage of the citizens and taxpayers at large. And that brings us to our first commercial break of the show, and this is still the Kokoliriko live on West Nile Television. My name is FARISH Majid. Stay tuned as we bounce back shortly from the commercial break.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that short commercial breather. We are back with the Kokoliriko live on West Nile Television. And remember, our final destination will be 9 o'clock. And after 9 o'clock, that is when the news bulletin in Lubarati will also really be coming through. But before we get to that, remember earlier on we were discussing the issue that's related to the merger of agencies. And I did mention to you some of these agencies that were to be merged, and then maybe others that were supposed to be taken maybe to the other ministries. And if you look at some of the agencies that need to be merged, we have also seen Parliament rejecting some of them, that saying that these are doing a great job job, and that is why also really, we need to support maybe government in terms of also really maybe leaving these agencies to work. But that also really, to me, should sound as a warning most of those agencies where the services have been very, very much still low, and really if they survive to emerge, then definitely they need to also really maybe up their skills and also really maybe up their cares, because some of these agencies realize that they do a lot of maybe issues, and that is where we have also really seen them at most times already clashing with some members of the public, and that is also really how dangerous they can be. But really, as we continue with the show, now to bring you into our first half, our second half of the first hour, let's now look at some of the stories happening this hour, this morning, as pastors and government also clash over proposed religious policy. And remember, government of Uganda, through that is the Director of Ethics and Integrity, is currently carrying out a mission that is also really to draw together and bring a policy that would also really maybe work together to also really maybe address the issues that also really and how these religious institutions can work. Because in most cases we have seen sometimes also these religious institutions are taking advantage of the members of public, and that is why the policy is also really maybe up in plans to be developed. And remember, recently we did see the validation of the exercise coming, that is to West Nile sub-region, where we did see a number of religious leaders across West Nile sub-region camping, that is in Arua City, also to dialogue and also really put their and share their ideas on this policy that they also that is also really going to address concerns, and that's also really problems among the faiths, and that is also really something we want to see maybe at the end of the day need to be streamlined, because sometimes we see the religious leaders also taking advantage of the flock, which is really quite ironic and quite unfair, because we do not expect religious leaders also really, as people of God, also to share, maybe also take advantage of the common people, and yet they are there to support and serve, and that is to serve God for the purposes of also the income and interest that is of the common people. And a section of born-again church leaders have asked government to postpone, that is the ongoing validation of the religious faith organization policy until that is the 2026 general election, and that is also really something they are saying on the this morning. But the government says a clear and comprehensive national policy framework is essential, that is to help in govern the registration and legislation of the RFOs in the country. And remember, nonetheless, Pentecostal church leaders led by that Pastor Robert Kayanja are demanding that is more time to read and digest the proposed policy before they can make submissions. And they also question whether the policy targeted a specific group of people or it is also really going to serve in the interest of everybody. And the religious leaders met a team of that is official from the Director of Ethics and Integrity, led by that permanent secretary, that is Mr. Alex Okello, at Miracle Cathedral Center. That's also really in Kampala on Wednesday. And the draft policy also, which is also really known as the Draft Religious Faith Organizations Policy, abbreviated as RFOs, Policy 2023 is being steered by the Director of Ethics and Integrity under Office of the President, and that's also really where they want to see the leaders working that is in relation and also respecting the ethics and that are in place, and also really working that is in respect of the law. And that is also really something we want to see. Maybe if at all it is passed and developed, that would also really go and maybe serve. If it's not a law, it's not a bylaw, it's also really not maybe a law, something of that sort, but it is just a policy that is also really going to maybe see to that the religious institutions, first of all, govern themselves by themselves and really also really work in relation to what the morals accept. Because if at all this policy is passed, definitely there is going to be also a self-judgment where the religious leaders and the religious institutions will also really work by themselves, and they also really will know if at all this is not also really respected, it would also really maybe act very, very bad for them, and which would also really maybe at the end of the day not favor them. And that is why we want to see this draft policy now being passed. And if it is passed, definitely we would also really see, first of all, the issue related that is to noise pollution, where some of the churches also really play loud music is maybe controlled. And then secondly, issues and tendencies of where some religious leaders say, God has told me to tell you, give me this amount, or maybe God has said, donate this to God, give everything to God, maybe I'm going to be doing this for you, give this amount of God, and this amount of money to God. This is also really where this policy is going to also really be also very, very much important in terms of addressing this challenge. And remember the issue of accountability also, where religious leaders also really will also really be required to account for what they are doing. That would also really be very, very much good. If at all we are talking about accountability, sometimes people's mind tend to rush very, very much to money. What about the other resources? Also really this is where the policy is going to be addressing that. And the draft religious faith organizations policy that is also really being steered by, that's the Director of Ethics and Integrity, is going to be addressing all these challenges that we are talking about. And during a heated meeting, that is pastor meeting with the stakeholders, Pastor Robert Kayanja, founder and senior also pastor, that's of Miracle Center, and that's in Cathedral, also want that the introduction of that policy could be also disguised plan by the government to be also ban Pentecostal churches in Uganda. And some of these religious leaders are sharing also fears about this policy. And really, why would they also really maybe fear if at all what they do is also something that they know is very good? That is also something we would also really wish to see. And remember, in the government, all that is of Idi Amin, Uganda government also recognized about 3 religions, and some of these religious institutions were not recognized. And that is also maybe why they could be having fears. And in 1970, former President Idi Amin banned, that is 26 Christian organizations and Baha'i faith that is from operating in Uganda. And the faiths affected included the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Uganda Baptist Mission. And the President Amin, who was a Muslim by then, granted freedom of expression to only 3 faiths, that is Islam, Anglican, and Roman Catholics, plus the Orthodox churches also to operate in there. And that is also maybe why the religious leaders also could be expressing fears under the same issue here. And at Wednesday meeting, that's Archbishop Odongo Moses, the General Overseer, that's National Fellowship of Born Again Pentecostal Church of Uganda, wondered if the draft policy considered that is all umbrellas of also really born again churches, and that's the way maybe where they also expressing their doubts. And Archbishop Odongo asked, also asked, now my concern is that you don't also continue to mention these indictments to bring that clarity. Is it then also going to also answer their question? And that is also something we would also see. And the same fears, by the way, we also expressed by the religious leaders from Western Sub-region during the validation exercise that is in Arua City at also the Heritage Park Hotel here in Arua City. And they also really wanted and demanded these policies so that they could read and digest it more. And that is where their email had to be picked, so that also these documents could be shared to them. And that is also something we hope they have really now understood and know what the policy is all about. And it's a draft policy. So maybe somebody out there could be asking ourselves, what is the policy all about? The director says the need for that policy was forced by the manipulation of congregations by certain leaders within the RFOs, and it also cites the notable absence of comprehensive guidance for the government's engagement with the support of the RFOs. And remember, these RFOs also need to work together in supporting government attain some of these government policies. And today, if we talk about faith-based organizations, definitely they have the followership. And if you look at the Muslims, 5 times a day is actually where they pray, and sometimes more than that. And that means there is actually freedom where government could also really utilize the chance and spread the messages also of government projects to these religious institutions, and that would also really be very, very good. And that is why this policy is also coming up on board to streamline the operations of the RFOs, and together with the government, which is at the end of the day aimed, that is to also really maybe steer development. And I really believe if at all that is also something passed, it would be a very, very good one for us maybe to see to it also at the end of the day. That would also really be very, very good. And as we continue with the show, and the draft policy is what we are discussing, and the draft policy lists some of the current shortfalls that among RFOs as manipulation, extortion, exploitation of followers, and loss of property and lives, disunity among faithfuls, also increased rates of that domestic violence, family breakdowns, also suitable instability, and promotion of immorality and noise pollution, among others, also which have been also being addressed as weaknesses among the faith-based organizations today. We'll also may be able to make an example recently where we did see in Arua district where a pastor who was from Congo locked a follower in the church and said the demons who have been training him are outside, and the man needs to remain that's in church. And that is already where we did see the man being locked and chained, and the man also really had to stay there where he had to be fed by a man, another people who had to give him food, and he had to really also have to ease himself through buckets and for days. And that is already until the leaders had to embark after the man had escaped, and after obtaining money from these also people that we are talking about. And these are the things that this policy is going to be addressing, and really also I believe it is good in the good faith, and really that is why we also need to support the policy. And once it is passed, we hope it will also really maybe at the end of the day address the challenges that we are talking about. And if at all that is also passed, we may also see the challenge, also maybe the challenge of exploitation and sexual, maybe immorality also in the church is also being addressed, because sometimes we see some of these religious institutions also maybe some of the pastors who are quacks also taking advantage, plus the sheikhs who have been quacks, because these are things that have been there, and these are realities, and these are things that we have known, and these are weaknesses we have also really seen. And that is why the policy to me is very, very good, and really I welcome it, and I hope it is also really passed such that also really the weaknesses that have been among the faith organizations is addressed. And also really I hope that is also really where it states that there shall be an independent board of appointed for that from RFOs by the Minister that's of State for Ethics and Integrity as part of a coordination framework that is and mechanism that is in RFO policy, implementation that's of roles and responsibility and financing. That's also something we also will continue pursuing and until we see this policy being passed on. And policy also states that the board shall also exercise the mandate for registration, regulation and monitoring and overseeing the activities of RFOs. The board will also facilitate coordination, effective and efficient relations among stakeholders where everybody shall be expected to work together. But some leaders who attended the meeting say the board will not manage the affairs of born-again churches because of their affiliation to different umbrellas. And Pastor Robert Rwamshana, the overseer that's of Pentecostal churches in Bunyoro sub-region, said it is not us who are choosing the board but the government, and now that the board cannot manage the born-again churches since we are different umbrellas. For example, if the chairman is a Muslim, he cannot govern the born-again churches, and the Muslims pray differently, the born-agains pray differently and believe also really differently too, and that is also really where they are expressing their doubts. But really at times we have also seen the interreligious organizations working together. Really, if you look at there are different leaders who work together, and these are also really, maybe if at all, these religious leaders who are fearing need to also learn from, because we want to see a policy that is also going to be addressing concerns, and also really, I believe it's for the betterment of maybe the leaders, and also really maybe the fraternity of the faith-based organizations at large. And the government, also the government has responsible to that. And Mr. Okello, in a telephone interview with journalists, said the Pentecostal church leaders don't have any clear reasons as to why the policy should be put in place. And that is also something we are seeing on the this morning as we continue with the show. And really, that is also something we want to ask your ideas. And remember, the policy has undergone validation in West Nile. It has also gone validation in West Nile, and actually sub-regions and eastern, western, and southwestern Uganda. And with the national validation also expected to be taking place, that is in May, and in all regions, church leaders have unanimously supported the policy to enhance collaboration with that RFOs and govern, that is to promote, that is full participation in enhancing that is social service delivery and economic development as to also that policy in there. Really, I don't know what you think about the policy, but you also really too can share your ideas. Is this policy the right one? Do you think it will address some of the weaknesses among the faith-based organizations? That is already where you also need maybe to share your ideas on, and definitely we shall be able to also go through it in the later hour of the show. As we continue with the show, definitely also your ideas and your comments are highly welcome, and that is also why I want to also see that you share your ideas, and that would also really at the end of the day make us also really head maybe to enlighten the region, because our mandate also remains, that is to enlighten the region. And as Western Television, we are not going to be doing that alone, and that definitely calls for your support, and that is already why we want to see as maybe you share your kindly share your opinions and also your ideas on what you think that we are discussing on the show. And we are also asking just right now, do you think that the policy will address the concerns and the weaknesses among the faith-based organizations? Do you think it will address, first of all, the corruption, and then secondly, the exploitation that is also really there among some of the, maybe the faith-based organizations? That is already where you also need to share your idea, share your opinion, and we shall be able to really go through it in the later hour of the show. As we continue with the show, we also really seeing on the papers here the ICT CT scan machine of Gulu Hospital breaking down after months of commissioning. Really, this is also something that we are seeing on the past morning. And remember, without CT scan, definitely this would also really see people being forced, that is to move to Kampala. And at one time, we also did see the CT scan machine of Arua Hospital breaking down. And this had to force so many people to also really move, that is to Kampala, that is Mulago Hospital, for these services also which they need, because which becomes very, very much costly, and also become very, very much dangerous for them, because they have traveled for long distances and get these results. And that also really comes with a lot of issues of wastage of money, first of all, which also really is an expense that is to the sick people, and whom I already believe have wasted a lot of money, and that is really something that limits so many people from going and for these reviews. And that is also something that I believe could be limited so many people out there right this morning. And really, I don't know what you think about the breakage in health, but really I want to say these are things that really which would have their negative repercussions. And really, I don't know what you think about it, because for people who are in there who may also need the services, would also maybe suffer, because they definitely do not have maybe the right money, which would also facilitate them to, that is to move to these various facilities. And I really want to say, if at all this also breaks down, definitely we are going to be seeing the doctors first of all not working, and then second, secondly, we would also really see the citizens who would need the facilities also suffering in there. And recently commissioned, that's computerized demographic CT scan machine that's at Gulu Regional Referral Hospital in Gulu City has broken down. And on Friday, journalists also visited the hospital and found that the machine broke down after 2 weeks ago, and patients are now being referred elsewhere. And that's sort of something why we say it becomes very, very much difficult. And Mr. Walter Oriek, the hospital principal administrator, has said a team of engineers from Ministry of Health has examined it and discovered that it has batteries, and its batteries are jammed, and it's also really broken down its conductors, and that's something we are saying maybe would also really be very, very much bad for them there. Whereas the patients would pay between 15,000 to 110,000 to access the services at the hospital, the breakdown will also now mean that they will have to seek expensive services within the city, which cost about 400,000. The machine is also one of the 14 that government procured and installed that's in all the regional hospitals across the country in the year 2022. And operation that month, mid-month, June 23, the CT scan became operational. That is also after the hospital secured services of qualified radiologists with partnership with the Gulu University, and that is also something we did see in there. And in a telephone interview, Mr. Emmanuel Ainebiona, the Ministry of Health permanent spokesperson, confirmed the breakdown of the machine and said engineers are already working towards restoration. And the CT scan machine is used to identify that's a disease or injury within various regions of the body. Also, that's also something why the CT scan is very, very much important. And it's also used to detect that's tumors or lesions within the abdomen, identify heart disease or abnormalities, and locate injuries, also blood clots leading to stroke, which exercise also the fluids and other conditions such as pneumonia. And last week, the management that's of the Gulu Hospital, also treatment center, said the CT scan machine is now operational, and it will also be limited also really on cancer and related conditions. Also, really, that is also really something we are seeing on the past morning. And I must say that is where people are going to be wasting a lot of money, for instance, also for them to travel. And that is also something we also really want to remind you of as we continue with the show this morning. And remember, so many issues have been also raised. For instance, also really the issue recently which have been there where a security guard is expected also maybe suspected also to take part in robbery there. Also, that is something also we are going to be talking about this morning. And remember, new details have emerged on that, and that is something I will be reminding you of. And that is also something we also need to see to that people whom we're employing as security guards also really are probably catered for, because sometimes how they are forced into poverty and maybe how they are forced into theft is because they are poor, and that is also really why they sometimes engage and connive with thieves to be maybe part of also the security, maybe security weaknesses there, because sometimes if they are paid poorly, maybe if their welfare is not also really well maintained, that would also really maybe lead them to also really attempting also really to work with other organs that also really they can also really steal. And recently robbery attempt that's at Equity Bank branch in Eastern Soroti City happened in the Eastern City, and also at a time where surprise power blackout investigators said, and that's also something we did see happening. But Mr. Peter Kauji, the spokesperson that's of Meme, said the national power distributor dismissed the claim, saying that this issue could have also been caused by the power blackout. And he's joined the flies. That's the first of earlier comments by Edwin Benessa, the deputy resident city commissioner that is in charge of Sorot City, who said the sudden power failure that's at around 3 a.m. also led the suspected rebels to attack in darkness. But really, what happened to the generator that was in place? These are the questions that also really need to be addressed, because as a bank, we do not expect you to only rely that is on the national maybe power, but rather we also expect you to have your own generators, and that is why maybe the security agency, maybe the security guard on duty that time could also be suspected. And in his official capacity, Mr. Benessa, who is the second in command overseer of security in the city, did not also specify information and said also this is also something we did also see. By press time, detectives were taken into custody. A security guard that's attached to that security guard Africa, also who was on duty, and his supervisor to help that is with investigations. And that's something we are saying these will also really may be able to answer the charges, because these have been apprehended as suspects. Because if at all such things happen, you can be also really arrested as a suspect, and you not only have to prove yourself innocent. That is at the courts of law, and say that they are looking for a second guard that is also that is by SGA who was deployed to protect this facility, also who had no show at work and disappeared after really being able to also really be maybe deployed there. And that is why the company also need to answer the questions and queries, and also that is why maybe the supervisor has been arrested. That is also help in investigation, and we really, and that's also something we are seeing, and we also really want to see, because what is happening in Soroti could at one time happen in West Nile, and that is why why we also need to ensure that people maybe also avoid themselves from such tendencies, maybe of also wanting to be engaging in these activities which are really very, very much bad and against the law. And that is something we are going to be following up on, and you can also still keep your comments coming through on the show. And as we continue with the show, we are also looking at how court has blocked the sale, that is of businessman Sentongo's property over that is 34 billion loan in there. And that's also another story that we are seeing on the past this morning. And remember, sometimes loans have very, very much affected these businessmen. But really, how best can they also really ensure that they also really maybe avoid loans? Because sometimes we have realized that without loans, these people cannot do. But really, how can they ensure that they sustain the loans that they are borrowing? This is also where we are asking ourselves questions, and we want to follow up on. And you too also can maybe drop your comments and share your ideas and opinions on what you think that we are discussing on the show. It's all about how best can this also ensure that they also maybe refund the monies back, because sometimes these loans come with the interest, which at the end of the day become overwhelming for these people to pay back, and that is why their properties are also lost. And we have seen also loans making some of these rich people become poor after their assets are being sold and after their business also being closed there. And that is also something we want to see. Maybe, if at all, these are issues, also concerns that need to be addressed, that would also really be very, very good, so that also we avoid the tendencies of people also becoming poorer after being rich. This is also in terms of also maybe these loans, which to me would be very, very good, if at all. We will also see that also these concerns that we address may be timely. And the Court of Appeal has temporarily stopped the sale of businessman Haruna Sentongo's property and the properties which are being owned by Mr. Sentongo and his family, and that's Haruna Enterprise, are being pursued by Diamond Trust Bank Uganda and Diamond Trust Bank Kenya over a recovery of more than that is shillings 34 billion. And in a ruling delivered by Justice Oscar Kiika John, the court noted that since Mr. Sentongo was in possession of the mortgage property with various tenants also already carrying out business, the sale will be detrimental before final disposal of main case. And that's something we are seeing this morning. And Sentongo had sought that's a temporary injunction pending disposal of an appeal which he and his Haruna Enterprise had filed, that's challenging also the sale of his property. And that's something we are seeing here on the past morning. And court documents indicate that Mr. Sentongo and his company are bound, that's by security regulation agreement, which also really placed them in debt, that's also to bank, that's at a tune of that's 9.8 billion due to DTB Uganda, and that's also shillings 6.6 million US dollars, that is about 25 billion due, that's also to DTB Bank Kenya. And court had that Mr. Sentongo acquired the disputed land in 2014, also already taking him over about 5 years to build a market, which he named that is also after his mother Naka is also there. That's something we are seeing on the past morning. And therefore Sentongo argued that his sentimental attachment, that's the property which cannot be compromised of the property is sold. He further argued that the same property also already was subject of an appeal which was yet to be disposed of. And thus Justice Kiika overseered that Mr. Sentongo's case was never heard of its merits because it was also dismissed from failure, that's for failure to file a trial bundle within the stipulated timelines. Also, that's something we are seeing this morning, and noting that the applicant would suffer that's irreparable damage if he condemned and had contrary the constitution, under which the right that's also fair hearing is non-derogable. Also, that's something also we are seeing on the past morning. And prior to that, the validity of the case and the injunction that will remain valid until the determination that Mr. Sentongo was appealed, in which is challenging that is the dismissal of his case. And that's something we are seeing on the past morning. I really don't know what you think about that. Really, do you think maybe the sale, maybe if at all court also give in turn, that would also be very, very good. And that's something we are seeing on the past morning as we continue to go on with the show. And also looking at some of the stories on the past morning, Parliament has made a contribution that's of shillings 1 billion towards the completion that's of the radiotherapy center that's at the St. Francis Hospital in Zambia. And the money was delivered by the Speaker of Parliament, that's Miss Anita Among, on Wednesday morning, minutes after she toured the construction site of the radiotherapy bunker and launched the 13th Rotary also Cancer Run 2024 in August this year. And that's something we are seeing on the past being done by the leader in there. And the Bukadia Woman Member Parliament said the money was drawn, that is also from donations envelope, that is the President Museveni reportedly aware of it. Also, that's something also we are seeing on the past morning, because we want to see the health definitely being improved. Because if you look at the private facilities, sometimes they're also supporting government, more so for those who have the capacity also to access those facilities are there. And according to the Speaker, the nation is for good of Ugandans who will be seeking transport, maybe treatment at the facility, and these are those who have the monies and those who also also responsible, maybe who have the capacity also to access private health facility there, and that is also really a reason as to why government of Uganda needs to support the private health facilities, because these are maybe facilities that are helping all the Ugandans. They're helping the citizens, more so the middle class and those who have the capacity, and that is also really one reason, also really, if at all, maybe such support is done. To me, it's good. I do not maybe see it bad, but I really want to see more of that happening. And the chairperson of the council run, that's Mr. Michael Nitegeka, said this year's editions aims that is to double the number of participants. That's from 30,000 in 2023, that is to 60,000 in 2024, and that is also something we are yet following up on. And the run will be done under the theme "Spread Magic Every Step" in an event that will be held at the Kololo Ceremonial Grounds in Kampala, and about also the shilling that 8.8 billion is required for the completion of the therapy center that is at St. Francis Hospital in Zambia. And about Zambia Hospital, the Catholic, and somebody may be asking, maybe how this facility also established. The Catholic mission that is also referral hospital was owned by the Archdiocese of Kampala and managed by the Little Sisters of St. Francis of Assisi, and was founded in the year 1903, and it has bed capacity of 361 beds. And according to also the website, the facility involved that patients care, research and teaching, also offers specialist services in surgery, internal medicine, also pediatric science services, among others already in there. And that's something we are yet following up on. And remember, this facility has also not been able to also really maybe cater for maybe alone the citizens of Uganda. I believe it also as well could be also really supporting maybe people coming from the neighboring parts of Uganda, for instance, in DRC, maybe those referrals from Rwanda, referrals from Kenya, and all this would also really maybe move to also really access the facility there, and I believe that would also really be a very, very good one, and that is also a reason as to why we want to see that facility being very much maybe supported. And as we are seeing also the facilities elsewhere being developed, we want to see all this also really helping and working towards improving the livelihoods of the citizens. And that brings us to another short commercial break, and when we bounce back, we shall be having what is happening right in the region. Stay tuned as we come back shortly from the commercial break.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial breather. And remember, as the rains are back, we are also seeing, and we want to say, let people take advantage of the rains. And really, this is also where they would also really engage themselves in active production in agriculture. And remember, the rains also really come with the negative repercussions, and that is also really on our main infrastructure. And as we are looking at that, and remember earlier on, we are talking about the merger of also really UNRWA also really surviving, being taken under, that is the Ministry of Works and Transport. And now we did see NEBI leaders, UNRWA officials, together with contractor meeting over the progress of rehabilitating, that is the new Alwi to NEBI road. And this is something also we want to see happening elsewhere. If we look at the road, the connectivity of the road network in Western Sub-region, most of the roads are in dilapidated state. Look at the road that is connecting, that is between Yumbe to Moyo and Yumbe to Jumeni. You realize that this road is never in a good state. And that is also recently we did see where we did see maybe a communication also really where government also said the road is up for that development, and we are yet following up on that discussion. But really, the leaders in NEBI district are expressing gratitude. That's for the construction of Alwi to NEBI highway by China Railway 18, a contractor undertaking the projects. And this was revealed during a meeting with the contractor and consultant and leaders from NEBI municipality and NEBI district, respectively, at NEBI municipality headquarters recently. And maybe let's first see how the leaders are also really saying, and maybe how the state of the road is in terms of also development. I believe you would also really maybe at the end of the day maybe pick something for yourself as we continue with the show. And that is something maybe at the end of the day how you would also really want to see to it that you help maybe also really develop yourself there. But before I give you that, let's also really look at maybe what is happening elsewhere in the Madi sub-region as the heavy rains return. We are also saying it is coming with its negative repercussions, and today you will realize that most of our water bodies are becoming flooded and most of the water is rising above the level. And that means for those who are living around also really the water straws, and you also need to ensure that you are very, very much careful. You are very, very much vigilant of your life, because at the end of the day we may see floods also taking up your houses, which would lead to loss of lives in there, because today you realize the water levels are rising above more than where they used to think, where we used to see them. And that is also really something for those who are living along the water banks, for instance along maybe rivers and lakes, for those who are living in, and for instance for those living in West Nile along the showers of River Nile. These the people maybe along also really Zombo, maybe in Madiokolo. You need to be very, very much vigilant as you live along these water showers. For those in Obongi as well, Ajumani, who are also living along the showers, you need to be very, very much vigilant, because the rains are returning back with its own negative repercussions. And at least 50 households, that is in River Zoka and Nyahama in Sinyaya village, that's in Rubini village, respectively, have been left homeless by heavy floods which destroy food crops, animals, leaving the residents stranded in there. And that is what is happening in Ajumani. Maybe let's first see what is there, as maybe how disposed families have been affected by this heavy downpour, as we continue with the show shortly from now. Thank you.
Nearly 50 households near River Zoka and Nyama in Senyanya and Rubapini village in Ajumani district are said to be homeless after the rivers burst their banks, which caused destruction of food crops animals leaving the residents stranded. This was revealed during a joint inspection by the disaster committees of Ajumani District and Obongi respectively, who called for immediate relocation of the victims. Kalisumu Faida, a resident of Senyanya village, Okusejoni sub-county, Ajumani District, one of the victims appeals for government intervention, saying their gardens have been submerged by the floods. Mr. Data Peter Taban, the resident district commissioner, Ajumani District, said the heavy downpour has destroyed the newly constructed road and calls for diversion of the river. Mr. Data Peter Taban also cautions people against using the road since it is still risky.
Indeed, when the UNRWA just worked on this road some few months ago, we opened in March, but it seems the works are not going to survive because of the waters. Our advice is we call the director, if there would be an opportunity, Zoka, river needs to be silted up in order to pass the water directly to the river, rather than going through the main road, because we will continue working on this road with no effect. The second thing is I want to caution and call upon the drivers and pedestrians who are still trying to try this route to be extra careful. Otherwise, we're not sure of what is going to happen.
Mr. Samuel Pimbaza Hashaka, the resident district commissioner of Bongi, advised people who live near the river points to protect their children from the floods since it is still dangerous. He, however, said as leaders, they are working hard so that the affected persons can be transferred to a safer place.
And we're also advising the people who are settled here. You can see how they are moving. It is so dangerous for them. And you can now see at a distance you have children. And the water levels for the adults is at knee level. So if it is at knee level and you have that baby you are seeing there, and those young children, it means they can easily be taken. You saw the women trying to cross from their homes there. They are almost being taken by the water. So as a leadership of the two districts, we also need to work out a way of evicting these people from these, flooded areas. Otherwise, we might end up with a disaster.
This is the first time rivers Zoka and Nyama have submerged, destroying food crops, households, and creating channel along Obongi Ajumani Highway. Peace Ushoki, Njima Alan, West Nile Television. Nilecast.
Now let's connect, that is, to the neighbors of Ajumani, where we are seeing people stranded and complaining about the floods and how they have been hit by, that is, the rising water levels. I believe all those could also really be negatively impacting on them. Now let's look at what is happening in their neighbors, because as West Nile Television, in the second hour, we give priority to the stories happening in West Nile sub-region, and that is why when we come here, I want to touch every part of the region. And now let's look at what is happening in the neighbors, that is Moyo District, where the leaders and stakeholders are saying the district is ready. That is for mineral exploitation, and remember, some minerals have already been discovered in that district, and I believe if at all we are going to be also really seeing that the exploitation is done, that would also really be quite good, because first of all, it's going to create employment opportunities for the youth today who are really complaining about unemployment, and I believe that is also really one advantage that this maybe this exercise will be coming with. Secondly, it's also going to bring money that is for the district through taxes, and I believe all this will be for the benefit of the district, and remember that would also really be maybe coming with its own negative challenges, and really we have seen mineral exploitation also really having their own negative challenges, but above all, we cannot limit ourselves to the maybe to negatives alone. What about the positives? And I believe that is where more of the emphasis need to be put on, because if you look at the benefits, maybe in my own opinion it could be different from yours, but I believe the positives are more than the negatives, and that is why we want to see the issue related to that, the exploitation of maybe the minerals is concerned, and maybe it's taken seriously. At the end of the day, that would also really help bring a lot of employment opportunities for the youth, first of all, and then secondly, bringing that is foreign exchange, and through taxation also, that would be what we would also really want to see as an advantage of the exploitation of the minerals in Moyo District. But the leaders there are saying they are ready, that is for the exercise to be implemented and also to be undertaken. Once also really they need to see to that the exercise is maybe taken seriously. And let's first look at what the leaders are saying together with the stakeholders, and maybe some of the minerals they have discovered in that area that would also really be quite good.
The closed-door meeting involved the key district leaders ranging from the resident district commissioner, the local council 5 chairman, the chief administrative officer, the leadership of Meto sub-county, the representatives of Linsec Company, and the representatives of the cultural leaders from Meto Sub-County, among others, to discuss the operation of Linsec Company in Meto Sub-County without the authority of the concerned leaders within the district. Honorable Anyama Williams, the chairman Local Council 5 Moyo, who doubles as the chair of the meeting, said the leaders in Moyo district have agreed to open their doors for anyone who wants to explore minerals in the district, but their concern is such people need to follow the correct formal processes and procedures to conduct their businesses within the district, including protecting the customary owners of the land where such activities are to take place.
We, the leaders from Moyo district, have agreed that to open our doors to anybody who wants to undertake mineral exploration in the district. We have no objection, but our concern is the correct formal processes and procedures must be followed, including protecting the people who are customary owners of those lands, because the project area proposed by Linsec covers 69.3 square kilometers of land. This is not a small piece of land. This is a huge area. Now, what is the protection of the people who are owners of this land?
Mr. Gore Goffin, the resident district commissioner Moyo, said there are procedures to be followed by whoever wants to do business in the district, including having an introduction letter from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, which will then give a go-ahead for the district leaders to engage the community members in such an area through meetings so as to allow them welcome the activities. He therefore urged the public to be calm as they wait on the district leaders to handle the issue at hand.
We shall therefore from there carry on meetings with the communities so that we streamline issues of the interest on the mineral resources that are available in Moyo district, and also to ensure that the exploration, the prospecting is done within the laws of Uganda. I want to ask all the people in Moyo district to remain calm. The matter is now being handled using the existing laws, and we shall surely reach a point when the minerals will be exploited using the right procedures so that we all benefit from them.
Honorable Susi J. Bissam, the district councillor representing Meto Sub-County, who also doubles as the Secretary for Finance, Administration and Production, said when Linsec first came in Meto Sub-County around December last year, they were allowed by the locals to take samples of the minerals, but since then, the company had been silent about the samples they have taken, claiming they did not find the minerals they wanted. But to the surprise of the community members, the same company has brought machines and have stationed it at the same location which they earlier claimed had no minerals.
They were given 2 weeks to take the samples. Since that time, they came, they are unable to give us results of what they took, claiming that they failed to get gold. And to our dismay, these people came and also brought machine. As they stock, there is machine on the ground.
According to information obtained from Meto Sub-County, Linsec Company in December last year entered Meto Sub-County, particularly Nyeri Hills, to conduct gold mining in the area without the knowledge and concern of the sub-county and the district authorities. This made the sub-county authorities to get concerned and contact the district leadership on the matter, which the district leadership took up and called 2 separate meetings to resolve the matter, with the first meeting held in January this year and the second meeting held in March, where the company was allowed to take samples of the minerals and report back to the district with the required documents from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development permitting them to carry on the mineral exploration, which the company failed to present to the district leadership. It's from this background that the district stakeholders decided to call the third meeting, which resolved that Linsec Company leaves the district with immediate effect, but if they are to come back, they must follow the right procedure of getting clearance from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and approach the relevant offices within the district before they get to conduct their exploration exercise. I'm done.
All right, welcome back to that story, and we are yet continuing, and let's now look at what is happening elsewhere, and these are things that we are talking about as UNEB is embarking on registration of the learners. And remember, as the schools are undertaking this registration exercise, which is currently done online, and recently during the training of the stakeholders on the e-registration, the teachers and other stakeholders have been urged that is to use the right names in the registration of these learners. And remember, if any mistake is done at that level, definitely the learner will also really continue with that mistake until they die, because recently some of the people have been saying, my name was supposed to be this and that is how I got this name, and that it is just because of a mistake. Maybe I did that the primary level, primary 7 level, and that is how I've gotten myself to be called this and that today. So to avoid all those mistakes, the parents, the teachers need to work together, and that is also to resolve that meeting, so that maybe that area and that weakness which has always been there. That is why they are saying there's need for people to also ensure that they register the names of these children in the right, maybe in the right manner. If at all, if somebody is called, that is John Musinguzi, their name needs to be John Musinguzi, but rather not Musinguzi John. Those are things that we are talking about. Maybe in those challenges, maybe if somebody is called Asedri John, the name needs to be Asedri John, not John Asedri, because these are sometimes where people get challenges, and maybe also in terms of also the surname and also the first name, where the confusion has always been, and that is also where an area people need to be sensitized about, because usually we see people saying, maybe if they move to the facilities and they say write your surname, you see somebody writing the first name, which has always been an area of concern, and which also needs to be addressed, so that also really people avoid these tendencies. Let's first look at what the stakeholders are saying in that meeting, which would also really maybe help us understand why there's need for proper naming in addressing these concerns.
The training brought in head teachers, director of studies and information and communication technology teachers in the districts of Obongi and Moyo to build up their capacity so as to allow them register their learners with the examination board. Mr. Sebuira Joseph, a staff of Uganda National Examination Board, who was the facilitator during the training, said the training is to ensure that no learner is registered using wrong data and then get problems in their next level of education, adding that UNEB uses all the data captured during registration to plan for activities such as administration of examination and how many scouts will be sent to monitor different examination centers, among others. He therefore appealed to the schools to use supportive documents such as national identity cards and birth certificates so as to avoid assumption and future problems.
We don't want a child to be registered using wrong data and then get problems at, for example, senior 6 in the next exam. So we use this opportunity to tell them how crucial. The other thing is we use the data we have gathered to plan for all other activities of UNEB, like examination administration. When we are sending question papers to schools, how do you plan for a sitting center? How many question papers do you send? All of that is based on registration data.
Mr. Iranya Moses Vuni, the head teacher Lefo Receipt Secondary School, who doubles as the treasurer for Association of Head Teachers Moyo branch, said they had failed to pick up with the registration because they didn't have the software for registering the learners, and urged the schools to start their registration processes early so as to avoid paying fines for late registration of learners, since UNEB has only given a very short period for the registration of the learners.
I hope within these remaining few days we should be able to capture their information, even if the registration is to continue during holidays, especially photographs and their PLE information results and then their choices after senior 4. I think this is very, very beautiful. That's how important this training today is.
Mr. Munyasa Richard, a teacher at Moyo Secondary School, expressed his disappointment to UNEB for delaying to send in the circulars to schools late, saying this will affect the effective registration of the learners, and request UNEB to consider extending the deadline for registration of learners to at least up to the end of June, saying the current registration deadline is too near and this may affect most of the schools.
The circular for registration was posted on 16th of this month, that's April. And now the training is being done on 22nd of this month. So the circular for registration has been backdated, which really inconveniences schools who are clients of UNEB. Therefore, we really humbly request UNEB to to adjust the deadline, extending it up to 30th of June as compared to previously, like for last year, so that the schools are not inconvenienced.
Mr. Dramani Sande, the Director of Studies, St. Andrews College, Moyo, said the new software has new components which caters for the continuous assessment, adding that more is yet to come, and this is going to help most of the teachers, especially in the registration process.
Basing on the new lower secondary curriculum, it is very important because it has new components. The software has new components that caters for the continuous assessment project work, of which we got information, and more is yet to come, especially with the new curriculum.
The Uganda National Examinations Board UNEB updates its softwares for registration every year, as expected by the policy, which always requires schools to be trained on the use of these softwares for registering their learners, and this explains the reason the training was conducted for the secondary schools within the sub-region. According to the UNEB circular, the last date for registering learners will be on the 31st of May 2024. Any registration later than 31st of May will attract fines for late registration. Each learner is expected to pay a registration fee of 164,000 shillings for those sitting for Uganda certificate of.
All right, welcome back to that story, and that summarizes our stories related to West Nile sub-region. And now, as we also see what is happening elsewhere in the country, Kampala Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago has been flown to India for spinal surgery treatment, and that is something we are seeing on the past morning. And remember, government is supposed to be taking care of these medical bills as he is taken, that is, to India for the treatment there. And Lord Mayor of Kampala, that's Mr. Erias Lukwago, was yesterday flown to India's capital, that's New Delhi, where he will undergo a spinal surgery. And Mr. Lukwago, who will be treated, that's for Medenta Mediclinic Cyber City, was referred that's by Mulago Hospital's spine surgeon consultant orthopedist Norbert Orotho, who will in April, the 13th medical reports say the patient needed that is surgery as soon as possible. And his close family relatives yesterday also said Mayor will spend between that 3 weeks and 1 month in India, depending on how fast the treatment will be done. And Dr. Orotho, in the report seen by journalists, also said the patient, who is also in the interim president of breakaway of the faction of FDC, presented the pain that's on his left upper limb about 2 months ago, and that is why there's need for this referral. And Dr. Roto, in the report seen by this journalist, also said there's a need for him to be referred as soon as possible. And he was, according to the report, subjected to a number of medical investigations where he was diagnosed that with the C6/7 cervical discopathy, and that is something we are seeing on the past morning, and yet we are following up on that discussion and maybe how he will be able to move into India. Then remember, government of Uganda is supposed to be taking care of his medical bills, and according to Veritas Health, a website, C67, which is also known as C7 nerve root, is commonly herniated in the cervical spine, which causes pain, tingling, and numbness, which may radiate into the hand and middle finger. Upon being diagnosed, Mr. Lukwago Orotho said was immediately also initiated on various treatments, including pain medication, neuropathic drugs, and also physiotherapy, with minimal relief also in there. And in April 16th, the letter that is dated, that is 16th, Rebasha Kadia and Varida Paul Singh, also both consultant researchers at Medenta Hospital, that is also said, Dr. Henry Mwebesa, Director General, also services, said Lukwago needed also that is as maybe referral as soon as possible, and that is also reason as to why he had been referred. And remember, this is not the very first time he is falling very, very sick, and remember, some time back he was only referred, that is, to Nairobi for further treatment, and that is also something we are saying, and maybe we want to follow up on that. What does that also show about our health system? Definitely that indicates that our health system is not in the right place, and that is why there's need for the government also to better up our health facilities, such that also maybe these referrals will be avoided, and government also in terms of also spending money that would be used maybe in referring these people to the medical facilities outside, they will rather get the treatment that they needed in maybe in Uganda here. And moving on from that, mother and son remanded over forging will is another story that we are seeing on the paper this morning. And the mother and 23 the son have been remanded to Luzira prison for allegedly forging a will, and Miss Margaret Nabakoza, a resident of Kira Municipality, Wakiso District, and her son, that is David Mutiaba, a student of Cavendish University, appeared before court on Tuesday on allegations that they connived with an advocate. That's one, Alice Nabakoza Nyombi, to forge powers of attorney for Harriet Nabosa Joyce Chiwanuka. The state said the alleged powers of attorney were given to Mr. Mutiaba, and they allegedly also already uttered the forged will and powers of attorney dated that's October 29th of 2020 to Kisubi Michael Stephen, who is also really supposed to be part of that crime there. And the pair are also facing another charge of intermediating also between the estate of that late Harriet Nabosa, including her land that's in Kyukumu, Kalita, Senge, Nakulabi, and Najera, where they also needed to take ownership of that land there. However, Mutiaba and his mother denied the charges, but because the state prosecutors are away from their duty sessions attending their annual symposium, they are remanded to prison until that is April 30th, that's of 2024, when they will again reappear in court for possible bail application. And court also issued criminal summons against the accused advocate Nabakoza, because she was also not in court also to attend that meeting in there. But really, why would somebody also really take maybe advantage of wanting to also really be part of forging a will? Because a will is something that where it is supposed to be very, very much honest. Because really, if you are not honest, maybe you are really also intending to take advantage of the people. That would also really be very, very bad. But really, this is also where I want to remind people with property, let them ensure that they write their wills when they are still alive. Let them work with the rightful people, maybe the rightful lawyers, because today we have so many lawyers coming out. Others may be quacks who will also want to take advantage and make money, and they would also really engage in such practices which are really against the law. But really, writing will is definitely the way to go, because an advantage of writing the will is that once you die, people will know how to maybe divide your property without necessarily causing a lot of fears, a lot of fights among family members. And that is why the issue of writing wills is always very, very much good, and something that we must also advocate for. Most of those who have property, maybe also those who are wealthy and those who can afford also to buy certain properties, and they have the families, let them ensure that they write the will such that also once they die, their properties are not being maybe taken over by some people, which at the end of the day would also act as a solution to the fights. And I really want to stop with that there as we head into another short commercial break, which is also really going to be ushering us into the world of sports. And remember, we have so many stories happening in the world of sports, and yesterday we also did see games going on, and tonight we are also going to be seeing more games, and these are determinant games both right locally and internationally, and we are going to be doing that in the later hours of the show. Stay tuned, and we bounce back shortly from the commercial break.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Alright, welcome back from that short commercial breather, and we are back into our final hour of the show. And remember, we are going to be doing this with you up the hour of 9 o'clock, and after 9 o'clock, the news bulletin in Lubarati, that's with Mukulia Lawrence, will be coming through. But before we get to give you that, we still have lots more, for instance, in the world of sports. But before we give you the sports, we are still seeing some of the stories on the past morning as Tayebo, the Deputy Speaker, tasked government to review courses before licensing universities. Is also another story that we are seeing on the past morning, and the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Thomas Tayebo, has implored the government to review university courses before licensing different education institutions. And Tayebo was speaking during the 4th graduation ceremony, that is of King Caesar University, where graduates were tasked to adopt technology even after school, and that is something we did see on the past morning. And remember, today so many people graduate, but in most cases also they fail to also really apply what they studied, and that is why these issues and of the review of the curriculum for university is very, very much concerned and very, very much needed. And I believe, if at all that is also something that needs to be reviewed, it will be very, very good, because sometimes after people failing to get the jobs, it becomes very, very much difficult for them to also really do something, and that is why there's need for the curriculum that's for university to be reviewed. If you look at what is happening at the O level, with the review vibe of the community, with the review of the subjects, you will realize that also really that is something we are now saying is very good, because at the end of the day, a learner will move out of secondary level at least with a skill, maybe in fashion, maybe in farming, maybe it could be also really in other skills, and that is also really why it is very, very much important for the curriculum that is also the university needing to be also really reviewed as well. And as well, the one for primary, I believe, also really needs to be reviewed, as well as the one for A level. We want to see maybe a curriculum that is practical based other than theory based, which would also really be very, very good, because they realize that most of the learners who are in O level are going to be sitting for exams under two categories. Others are going to be sitting the UBTEB, which is also the Directorate of Technical setting there, and which to me would also really be very, very good, and they will also really be coming out with their curriculum. And I believe also with certificates, which would also be quite good, because for a learner who fails maybe to get a job, will also really be incorporated that is in the world of skills, and that is also really as reason as to why we need to support the need also for the development of that curriculum in there. And over 200 students have been graduated. That's from King Caesar University during the 4th graduation, that is of the university ceremony in there, and these were in different courses, from diplomas, from degrees and certificates, who are now also really may be expected to come back and face the reality of the world, which is also really something that people scare of, but really it's not a scare, it is a reality. The world outside school is usually never green, but really if you maybe work hard and pray harder, definitely you will also really land yourselves in fertile grounds. And presided over by the Archbishop of Kampala Archdiocese, Most Reverend, that is Paul Semogere, in his speech, he advised the students to refrain from activities of dishonesty and corruption during and after their workplaces, and that's something we want to see people also really championing, because if you are told after graduating you want to build a house in your first year, you want to buy a car, you want to marry, all these things cannot be achieved in the first year, and really if at all you also really want to do that, it is going to subject to corruption and also theft, which would also really be very, very bad. And that is why the Archbishop is actually cautioning university graduates, because sometimes because of pressure after graduating, you know that these students want to do so many things at once, and which would also really be very, very much bad, and would also really result in tendencies of corruption first of all, and then theft, which is also really a repercussion of what they want to do. And Tayebo also really implored the government to avoid increasing different universities before reviewing the respective courses, and that is also really something we want to see, because you realize that many universities are coming up, and each and every year these are passing out students, but the issue of the curriculum is not also really something that is not being reviewed, and how are these going to be coming out, because each and every year these come out with papers, and they come out with degrees, they come out with the diplomas, which are very good, but really, and after failing to get jobs, and really, where do they go next? These are the questions also really people need to ask themselves as Uganda makes strides. That's Vision 2040. Graduates have been asked, that is also to embrace technology in the challenging, evolving world. And today, without technology, trust me, you would also not maybe at the end of the day also really do what you want, because if at all you are working outside technology and you do not want to embrace technology, definitely I must remind you that it is going to affect you, and it is also going to cost you, and that is also really a reason as to why we need to ensure that we also really support and champion the issue related to that is also really that is related to also the issue about this issue about also really changes in curriculum which need to be also really embraced. And elsewhere in Masaka City, there's a surge in street children numbers which is raising concern among stakeholders. It's already another story that we are seeing on the this morning. Authorities in Masaka City are increasingly alarmed by the surge in children fleeing their homes to reside in streets, and that number is said to be also really above 170 cases which have already been reported at the start of the year, and that number is too huge. And definitely this is also really maybe a weakness of the parents. How can your own child escape from the home and try to also really go and survive on their own streets, and where do this subject them? And I must say this also really subjects them to suffering which is against their rights, because the children's rights is against also really children living by themselves, because the duty of providing for these children is a responsibility of the parents. And as parents, if at all you leave your children to also really go and suffer in the streets, I believe these children need to be arrested and also direct to the parents, and the parents as well needs also to be arrested. And this is also really something that we also want to follow up on, because if you look at what is happening in Kampala, you will see children just below the age of 10 years are living by themselves on the streets, and they have to survive. That is how dangerous it can be, and this subjects them to theft, and that is also because they have to survive by all means. After failing maybe to eat from begging, definitely where do you go next? It is going subject to theft, which is already very, very much bad, and also that subjects them to abstract suffering, which is also really very, very bad, because the children also need to be raised with parents, and that is also really a responsibility of the parents, definitely also to ensure that the children are very much safe. And in Arua City here, I must say the number is so increasing. Really, if you want to side with me, trust moving at night. You realize the number of children moving at night without guidance, and this also shows that the number of street children, we are not talking about it yet, but the number is also really on the rise, because during daytime you find the number of children moving within the streets collecting bottles. This is to survive. And really, that number should be also really alarming, and that is also a reason as to why we need to ensure that we talk about this. According to Family and Child Protection Unit, that's at Masaka Central Police Station, domestic violence has been identified as the main cause, or that's of the numbers in children also moving into streets. And Rose Namwanje, overseeing Family and Children Affairs at the Masaka Regional Police Post, expressed frustration over the persistent issue of neglectful parents, particularly men striking those already their responsibilities, and that's also something we want to see maybe at the end of the day. If at all parents who are neglecting their duties arrested, it would also really be well and good. And despite efforts to address the root cause of the violence, there is notable gap that is in understanding and cooperation. That's from some parents, as a reason as to why we are seeing now numbers of the children also being on the rise. And I believe if at all we talk about this, then definitely if we work together, it would also be very, very good. And Ada, the head of Child and Restoration Outreach, a home of street children, emphasized the critical need that's for concerted efforts, that's to reintegrate that the children vulnerable who are suffering in the community is also back to their homes, and that was also something we want to see maybe at the end of the day resulting into children also really coming back home, because we want to see the issue of street children being kicked out, because really these are children who are supposed to be with their families. And while the agency is actively engaged, that's the education initiative support these children, the magnitude of task also remains daunting, and criticism have been also levied, that's at city authorities, for purportedly also really insufficient measures to address the plight of street children, underscoring the urgency for that comprehensive intervention strategies. And that's something we want to see maybe the leaders working towards solely to address that challenge and the concern of the street children, which is currently on the rise. And the escalating number of street children that in Masaka underscores the pressing need that's for collaborative efforts, that's also from authorities, communities, and families to provide adequate protection and support. That's for vulnerable children, ensuring that their rights are also really safe and respected. That's such that they can also really be raised in environment that is very suitable for them. And that's something I want to echo out my voice on, because all stakeholders have to work together. If I talk about stakeholders, parents, definitely you a stakeholder, the leaders, you a stakeholder, the community themselves, you need to work together also to ensure that parents who are neglecting their duties are reported to police, and that is already something which does bring us to the end of the show. And yesterday, as we summarize the discussion, as always, with what is happening in the world of sports, and as the schools that is within Western Sub-Region are trying to move, that's to Masaka City today, and Varasini Secondary School is expected that is to move, that is to Masaka City today. And yesterday they did have a game that is between Arua City Football Club, and I must remind the game ended 2-2. That is at Arua PTC, and that's also a preparation game, and according to information, the team is already in good shape to represent the region that is at the forthcoming national games that will be taking place at Masaka City. And we are now waiting to see if Mvara can also really raise the flag and raise the bar of Western Sub-Region very high. That would also really be very, very much good. And remember, as we are extending close to the weekend, so many games also really will be going on tonight, and as yesterday we did see games also going on. That is so really maybe maybe to a dismay to some of the maybe fans. And if I can really briefly remind you of some of the games that did go on last night, Bournemouth did play with Wolves, and the game ended 1-0. That's in favor of Bournemouth. Crystal Palace also did play with Newcastle United, and shockingly, Crystal Palace was able to beat Newcastle by 2-0. Another shocking result was between Everton and Liverpool, where Everton beat Liverpool 2-0, and Manchester United also went on to beat Sheffield United by 4-2. And these are some of the games that did go on last night. And tonight, we are also going to be seeing a game that's in the world of English Premier League between Brighton and Manchester City, which is also already a title contender. So that is also a game which I must say is going to be very much tight, and we are going to be following up on that discussion. And later on, maybe tomorrow, we shall also really be letting you know of some of the games that did go on last night. And today we're also going to be seeing in the English, sometimes Uganda Premier League as well, games will be going on. Before I leave, also what is happening right at home, Gaddafi will be playing, and that's AC Villa, as Bright Stars will be taking on KCC. And NEC also did play yesterday, and NEC beat Bull by 1-0. And tonight also really, we are going to be seeing many games, as shocking results also really were witnessed in the Sometimes Uganda Premier League yesterday, where Maroons also really held Vipers to a 1-1 draw, and that's something which also scared and maybe surprised many people. And Express was also beaten by Kitara, and that makes Kitara move on top of the log. That is by a point. And NEC also really beat Bull, as I did mention earlier on. And maybe if you look at the table standings, maybe somebody may be interested in the table standings. Kitara remains on top of the log. That is also really maybe in the first place. That is also really with 47 points. Vipers comes in the second place with 47 points. Bull comes in the third place with 46, and NEC also Football Club also comes in the third place, in the fourth place, I mean, with 43 points, as AC Villa comes in also really in the fifth place there. And we are yet following up on this English Uganda Premier League, and I must tell you, so many of these games will be going on, and we are yet following up on, and I will be reminding you maybe tomorrow and later on the show today, Owen Izaga together with Linda Suze also will be giving you more details of the games and really how the games will be going on, and that is on the Wishu time. That's from the hour 2 to 3 p.m. For the sports lovers, you must also be part of that discussion, and that is already happened, and that only happens here on Western Television, and the team will be here to give you more of the details and maybe some of the games that we didn't give you, and that is also really something that you must also be part of. And with that, we come to a close of today's discussions. In a special way, I want to thank whoever was part of the show right from the time it began, and I also want to appreciate the technical team for ensuring that the show also runs smoothly, and really we shall be bouncing back tomorrow for the final edition of the week. And really I want to appreciate you who watched us right from the time it began, and until this hour of the morning. We say have yourselves a good day, and from me to you also, let's link up again tomorrow. And up next is the news bulletin in Lubarati with Mukulia Lawrence.